There's a camera, darling. You're on our reach. Yay, we made it. We're fine. We have to give this back. My grandfather would be really pleased to see all of you here. It's just what he wanted. I'm so happy to be here again. My first visit was when I was perhaps 15 with my grandfather and with my parents, and we stayed in the plantation lodge and we had an amazing visit. Then I came back again in my 20s. I did a volunteer spell of about 3 weeks or so, and then again I came back when I was pregnant with him in my tummy, did another volunteer spell. I love our Reed Island. It's definitely in my blood.
M'ont vraiment impressionné avec ça qui m'ont noir. Premièrement, l'histoire sa île. Comme si pour un monsieur anglais sorti Birmingham pour lui acheter sa île et au lieu de faire son propre la case là ou bien faire l'hôtel pour lui donner ça, pour lui retourner ça avec ses îles. Il a acheté pour lui retourner avec ses îles et pour dédier pour l'environnement. Ça, premièrement, il touche moins en quantité. Et la façon qu'il peut continuer à soutenir sa projet pour Ilaride.
Lucy CADBURY, we're here next to this stone that reminds us of the role that your grandfather, Christopher CADBURY, played in protecting, preserving the biodiversity of Ilaride. So, visiting the island must have a very special significance for you.
It's certainly very special to be back here on our Reed again. My grandfather, Christopher CADBURY, would be very happy that I'm back here again with my son. I've come here 5 times now. The first time was with my grandfather when I was about 16, about 19, in 1986 or something like that. And it was a very different place to how it is now. You know, no electricity. We slept on the plantation lodge, had a hurricane lamp to eat our food by, and he was very adamant that it should be a place that everyone should realise has a great significance for conservation, and it should be preserved for future generations. My father, Christopher CADBURY's eldest son, James CADBURY, has come on various visits, and he has worked all his life in bird conservation, and he's always helped manage how the wardens and rangers have been, how it's all been managed, and he's delighted that I've come back again. I've also spent several periods doing conservation work as a volunteer, and that were very interesting periods of my life.
Did your father often speak about Ilaride when you were out there in the UK? We see here from the stone that he died in 1995. Before his death, did he often speak about Aride?
Yes, he did. His vision was that places that have amazing amount of birds that are endangered and huge bird colonies, they should be preserved for future generations. And he always wanted to take us here. But it's quite difficult because in those days it seemed very far away, and some people said, you're a bit crazy to try to protect something so far away. But now we all know that it's really important, and these kind of places need to be protected. They're real gems.
And they do, I mean, they occasionally fly. Wasn't there one that went to Dennis Island?
There was one from Aride that went to Dennis. There's a couple of birds that have crossed from Kuzan and Kuzin to Pralan. So they can fly short distances.
Short distances, but not the long distances.
Yeah, and they did spread between all the Granite Islands at one time. Yeah.
And there's never been an attempt to bring it on Mahi at all.
They were on Mahi,
They
but
die
you
out.
can forget it now because the cats and rats were...
They're very trusting.
Lucy, you know about the environmental problems in the world today, pollution, deforestation, and so on. Do you think that it is still worth protecting this literally small island of biodiversity in this ocean of problems?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very important island, and it's got some of the most endangered species like the magpie robin here, really big tern colonies, and it'll have loads of frigate birds. It's a really important island and lots of amazing features, like this banyan tree that we're standing under. All the roots are coming down. It's been here ever since I've started to come to Arid Island, so it must be very old.
This time you've come with your son, Darwin. Is there a special reason that you felt it important that he visit the island at this point?
Well, I think he's old enough now to remember it. It's quite a long trip for us, but it's important that we teach the young people all about conservation and all about the things that we need to keep for the next future generation. He's really interested. What did you find most interesting, Darwin, today?
Probably the magpie robin.
Yeah? And what about that big white bird that flew over your head? Do you know what that was?
Yeah, it was the...
Was it a
tropic bird?
Tropic bird, and an amazing long white tail.
Yeah.
What's amazing here is that the birds have never been hunted, so you can go right close up to them because there's no rats and cats on this island. It's very sad. A lot of the other islands have got rats and cats, and we just have to be very careful that we don't get rats or cats when they import sort of building materials or things like that, because that would cause massive destruction to this paradise.
Talking about young people and their connection with Arid, there is still a program going on whereby young volunteers, Seychellois as well as people from overseas, young biologists, for example, can come and do part-time voluntary work on Arid, spend some time on the island. You've done that yourself. How important is this program?
Yeah, I think it's a very important chapter of my life, really. I came and, things were very basic. It's not really paradise in some ways, because when I first came, there's no electricity, just a long drop toilet, just to throw a bucket of water over yourself. It was quite hard work, actually, and at night you don't sleep because all the seabirds are coming in and making a huge cacophony of noise. But I learnt so much, and it was really nice meeting the Seychellois wardens and rangers and doing things as joint projects. They taught me how to make fish curry and all sorts of things, and we had really interesting conversations, and I learnt so much about life by coming here.
Until they are 20% heavier.
20% heavier than the adults. And then the adults realise, hey, hang on, I'm wasting my time here. And they
get off your bum
more or less abandon the chick so that it's forced out by hunger to go and fend for itself.
Wow.
A whole group of parliamentarians, members of the Seychellois National Assembly, was part of the group visiting the island today together with you. And the parliamentarians represented both sides of the house, as it were, both the government party, the opposition party as well. What do you see as an observer, what do you see as the significance of this?
Well, I think that's fantastic, because Christopher Cadbury would have never dreamt of this was possible back in the 70s. And back in the 70s, there were mainly English wardens, and now everything is being governed from the Seychelles, and that's how he wanted it. He would be so pleased to see this happening, and that Arid Island, there is much more importance given to an island like this, and everyone is talking about it, because that's the way to conserve it, for people to be aware of it and to teach the next generation, people his age, about the importance of looking after these places.
Would you agree that environmental protection is one area at least where there isn't as much bickering or disputes between political parties in most parts of the world as much as in other fields?
Yes, perhaps that's true. But also I think now we've got, programs put out on television like Blue Planet with David Attenborough, and it's accessible to everyone in their living rooms, and people are hungry to learn about conservation and about these places. And it's amazing that the Seychellois people have got this on their doorstep. And it's great that the Seychellois people are doing degrees in conservation, and they are the wardens now. And that's how it should be. They should be looking after this. Yeah, and it's fantastic to be here. He would be so proud that all these people have come today.
And on seeing the old plantation lodge, the old house, which is still here on Arid, you've actually lived there yourself. Does it bring back special memories?
The plantation lodge is amazing. It's where I stayed with my grandfather and where I did my 2 spells of volunteer work there. It's actually quite comfortable because it's got amazing construction, how the air circulates around it. But it was quite basic, you know, no mod cons there. But I love the plantation lodge. It's a very special place. Yeah, I slept in this room when you were in my tummy. And I slept here when I was 16. Great place. It's got amazing architecture because the air flows round it naturally. It's really clever design. I was really happy here. I had to go right down through a long path into a long drop toilet, and there were big giant millipedes and things, so it was quite scary having to go to the toilet in the middle of the night. And then you always just sit around here and you share your breakfast with all the skinks and geckos all around. And when you're lying in bed at night, you just see the eyes of the geckos lighting up on the wall. Sometimes there was a little water filter here, and sometimes you'd find a gecko just with its mouth under the water filter. But now look, you've got electricity. It's very fancy. And I slept there with my grandfather and my parents, and we played Scrabble under a hurricane lamp because there was no electricity. I have some very fond memories of that place.
Lucy, you visited Île-à-Ride a number of times. Do you see any changes?
I see some changes for the better because I think sometimes it's quite hard for the rangers and the volunteers and the wardens to, you know, be here for a long stint because before there weren't flushing toilets and there wasn't electricity. Now they have all the facilities to carry out very good scientific data, and they have, you know, better facilities and they can stay here for longer, much more comfortably. So I'm really pleased that the houses for them to live in are better. And it's just great that the way that the island has been maintained. You know, there's a lot of scientific work, and there's also sort of work parties clearing invasive species. There have to be sort of eradication programs for certain invasive species, and you know, other plants like the Wright's gardenia and indigenous species are you know, encouraged here. So they're doing all the right things. It's going the right direction.
To what extent is the Island Conservation Society, Fondation pour Conservation Urbaines Îles, succeeding in its mandate to protect the island of Aride?
Well, I think the fact that the Island Conservation Society has input from many different countries and from Seychelles people, and the fact that it's based on Mahe is very important because they have all the right expertise and knowledge to do the right kind of program, and then they can also learn from the other islands, so then knowledge can be shared among the islands to get the right habitat program set up.
We also have more and more young Seychellois now coming up as scientists, biologists as well. What are your views on this?
I think that's thrilling. That's so great news. That's what we need to encourage those people and to help them get good careers and, you know, well-paid careers, because it's not easy to get good jobs there, and something, you know, some people just do it on and they have to do another job at the same time, but it should be seen as a very legitimate career path, and I'm very proud of the people who dedicate their lives to doing that.
Lucy, very soon you will be going back to the UK. What sort of relationship will the Cadbury family continue to have with Île-à-Ride?
We're happy to keep continuing to support them. I'm a trustee for Aride Island, and I hope to teach my son about Aride, and we'll continue supporting. And when we're in London, we receive the newsletters and we read all about what's happening, and then from time to time, when we can, we'll come over and visit. But we're just so pleased that, you know, this island is making lots of steps in the right direction.
Do you ever think of Aride while you're out there in the UK?
Oh, often. I often dream about Aride. When I land here, it has a certain smell. When I was going up the hill, I remember going up in the darkness and smelling for the pineapple grove. We used to have to go up in the darkness, shine torches from the top to show there was a presence here, to deter any people coming aboard to steal the eggs. This is a long time ago. And then we'd have to come down in the darkness. I knew where I was because I could smell the pineapple plants. And yeah, when you're living for a couple of months on an island like this, you get to know it, and you really get to love it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Lucy Cadbury, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.